Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I want to address a topic today, and I want to note up front that this is a topic that has to do more with medical research, people who are getting testosterone replacement therapy through a doctor, and I know a lot of people may utilize this information for their blasting and cruising protocols who are doing a separate thing with their testosterone. But I really can't advocate that anybody do anything illegal or use testosterone outside of the care of a doctor if they're in a country to where it requires a prescription. So let's focus really upon just the medical aspects of it. Now, this is a topic that has come up in the community a lot lately. I've seen quite a few different discussions and debates on it, and that is this idea of people doing their testosterone replacement therapy subcutaneously, particularly around the waistline or the thigh and the fatty tissue there, as opposed to intramuscular. So I've kind of dug into the different research and ideas on it, particularly by what various medical doctors who are involved with this have to say, as well as some of the studies that have been done on this, to get an idea of what's really going on, to kind of cut through the myths. Now, long-term over in the training world and physique world and everything, people have always been really scared of subcutaneous injections with intramuscular oils because there's that fear of it causing an abscess. There's always rumors of it causing an abscess. And a lot of that seems to be really due to the fact that when anything seeps out intramuscularly into the subcutaneous area, all these underground lab drugs that people are using, they tend to have a lot more solvents, a lot more alcohol in them because of the environment they're created in to make them sterile enough for people to get away with using. So frequently you'll see that, and it causes a lot of irritation and inflammation. And you can run into the same issue with these. If someone's using these underground drugs and doing the same thing subcutaneously, they're probably going to get more swelling than they're going to get from a pharmaceutical. Now, as far as the actual data goes, there was a lot of concern with this initially because testosterone aromatizes generally inside the fat tissue. So the concern was that if people are injecting it into fat tissue as opposed to muscle, that it will aromatize at a higher rate. However, a couple of studies have been done on this, and it appears that it does not aromatize at any higher of a rate. It seems to aromatize at the same rate, and it's because the actual testosterone doesn't get released in the fat tissue. It unbinds from the ester and goes into the bloodstream, and then it is picked back up into those areas. So it doesn't seem to affect that. It does seem to slow down the absorption a little bit, so in a lot of individuals you might get a more stable testosterone level. There's conflicting information on that. That hasn't been determined. However, there's at least a couple of physicians who do this who have noted anecdotally with their patients that the subcutaneous injections tend to give more stable blood levels. And for some of them, they're saying they do see less E2, lower estrogen levels, suggesting a lower aromatization rate. However, this hasn't really been supported by the actual research and data yet. So I wouldn't necessarily rely upon that. The other big side with it is, let's set that aside and assume that it's completely equal to intramuscular. The real big deal there is that it doesn't build up the same scar tissue because people are not injecting it an inch deep, an inch and a half deep into muscle tissue every single week. It's going into fatty tissue. It doesn't build up that intramuscular scar tissue, and it is much, much easier for scar tissue to break down inside adipose tissue than it is your muscle tissue. And it's overall less painful. So that's the reason people are doing it. It's giving muscles a break from being injected all the time so you don't build up that scar tissue. And that's something even potentially useful for people who do blasting and cruising outside of TRT, because a lot of those guys are really getting a lot of scar tissue buildup from their blasting, and their cruising can give them a chance to let that muscle tissue rest if they're going just hypothetically into subcutaneous tissue instead. So that might be something that can actually benefit those people in terms of a long-term well-being benefit, because that scar tissue doesn't break up. That stuff can last for decades. The only downside there is, of course, is going to be the amount that people can put in. Again, doctors have noted this. I know a couple of researchers who've noted this, some coaches, that there's a very limited amount that you can get away with subcutaneously without causing a massive amount of irritation locally, and it's generally around 0.5 milliliter. So if someone is using a whole milliliter for their TRT, they're going to need to put it in 2 different spots. And again, the most common tends to be the lower stomach, the flanks of the love handles, or a fatty part of the thigh, depending on how much body fat you have. Those do seem to work best, at least according to medical doctors. But again, if someone is going over 0.5 milliliter, they're going to need to use more than one side at a time. You don't want to put an entire milliliter into one spot. So for those of you guys who are out there on TRT, it's something to consider speaking with your physician about. If you've been doing intramuscular for it, get your medical doctor's idea, your endocrinologist who's helping you with this. Discuss it with them and see what they know about it, and see if they'll look into the research and maybe get back with you and see if they'll consider doing it subcutaneously, or if you're self-administering with your prescription. Again, run it by your doctor and see what they think. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.